Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Stein. With me today is my co-host Charlie Wood. Today we have our first guest appearing on the show. Stephen Irving is a practising artist and also the co-director of an art gallery called Pineapple Black, which is located in the town of Middlesbrough. Are you alright, Steve, mate? How are you doing? How's lockdown been treating you?
Lockdown's not been too bad. I've got two small kids keep me entertained, so yeah, I've kind of gone past the driving me mad bit, and we've got into a bit of a routine now, so it's not too bad.
So, you've been running Pineapple Black now since January 2019. Our very own Charlie had work in that show, for a matter of fact, I believe. I think you put him in the back room.
It was as far out the back as we could get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still in.
It was a very successful opening. Dare I say it's the most people I've seen at a local event. You did a time lapse of the exhibition, which can still be found on Facebook. People drink the bar like dry very quickly. I think you made sangria for it, if I'm correct.
I made a sangria, which admittedly, given it was January, was probably not the wisest choice. But we didn't have any. We did originally want to do mulled wine, but then we didn't have anything to heat the wine with, so I made sangria instead. And then I also made a random pineapple cocktail thing. But yeah, by the end of the night, I don't think anyone cared what it was anymore. Everyone was just drinking it.
Yeah, people love alcohol at art shows, man. But I guess it is like a vital component in turning an event into like a big night for everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big thing as well with it was because we had some funding, so we were able to do like a free bar. So I mean, we put a thing up there for people to give like donations and tips and stuff if they wanted, and they did. And it actually, it paid for the bar itself actually, but the drinks were technically free, so everyone loves a free drink.
Should we talk a bit about how you came to find the space, which is now known as Pineapple Black? That's quite an interesting story behind it, doesn't it?
So it was well, East Street Arts had taken over the space and had a girl lined up who was going to have an exhibition in it. But she pulled out, and it was just before the Middlesbrough Art Weekend, and the Middlesbrough Art Weekend had another space that they lost. So this space was available for the Middlesbrough Art Weekend, so it was used during that for the event. And then afterwards, East Street Arts sent a message to Liam, who was organised the Middlesbrough Art Weekender, saying, look, we've got this space. If you know anyone who wants it, or anyone who wants to hold an exhibition or anything like that, let them know. So I'd been working on the Weekender, and I'd been speaking to Liam about wanting to open my own space and stuff, but struggling to find somewhere. So he let me know. I sent them an email kind of saying I'd be interested in taking it on, but not just for an exhibition, just as kind of like to run it as a space. And then I think it was about a week and a half later, I got the keys.
How did you come by the funding to support the gallery, Steve?
So, well, we were quite lucky in the fact that in August 2018, Middlesbrough Council had set up a thing called Creative Factory. And the whole idea of Creative Factory was to support grassroots art, put the funding that was available for arts in Middlesbrough to artists in Middlesbrough and the surrounding areas, rather than bringing people in from all over the country like they have done in the past. And so there was this pot of funding there, and admittedly we invited Gordon Dalton, who was in charge of the Creative Factory. We invited him over to the space just to look at it. Yeah, we just invited him around just to look at it and just say, look, this is what we're going to be doing, to kind of get Creative Factory to kind of help promote it. And then he offered a bit of money to keep it going until we're able to get an Arts Council bid in. So with that initial amount of funding, we were able to kind of get the place up and running, buy the things that we needed to buy, paint it, decorate it, have the opening and stuff, and run it until we were able to get the Arts Council funding, which we were lucky enough to get. And then that funded us all the way up until January of this year, of 2020. So that meant we were able to put on like a full year's worth of programming through the funding that we'd received from both Creative Factory and the Arts Council.
It is a very large space that you acquired through this, though, isn't it? The gallery itself it's got a massive floor plan.
It is. Well, it's an old New Look store, so it was very much set up for New Look. So it's just wide open space, so people could wander around, see all the clothes, etc. Mirrors on some of the pillars, and then out the back there was the old change room area, which is this huge changing room. But all they'd really done is took down the doors and the curtains. They'd left all the kind of individual pod spaces, which was in there where Charlie had his exhibition. So it was it was kind of almost perfect as was for an art exhibition space, because it had all the lights and everything set in there. All we basically had to do was paint the walls.
I do believe that it is a very good space to just come across on the off chance.
Well, like I said, I think one of the biggest highlights was the lighting, because we had a guy come who, I can't remember which gallery it was, but it was one of the galleries up in Newcastle, and he was like, "We've just had to fork out tens of thousands of pounds to get a lighting like what you've got here," and we just got it because obviously it was really good lighting for New Look to be able to kind of show off all the clothes and stuff like that, So it made it kind of it made it really easy to kind of convert that space into an exhibition space. Yeah.
I've actually found myself that the Arts Council has been very supportive of local companies and events lately. Do you think it provides a much needed service, and arts and cultures of towns is something the government should be obliged to help develop?
I think, well, it certainly does help. I mean, there's no way that we're able to keep what we do going without the funding. I mean, it's very grassroots. Me and I run it with my co-director Bobby, and neither of us could afford to have that space and to do what we do there if we were having to pay for it. Because it's an art gallery.
It is almost prime real estate. It's in the town centre. I imagine if a retailer wanted to purchase that space, it'd come with a heavy price tag.
Well, that's it. A store would have to pay the full rent, but because we get it through East Street Arts, the rent is low enough for us to be able to kind of to run it, and we don't have to worry then about trying to generate income, because as a gallery, galleries don't generally generate income. The cafes and the shops and stuff like that attached to the galleries do. But the galleries themselves, if they want anything beyond that, then it's through funding is the only way that they're going to be able to get that, whether or not that's through something like the Arts Council or private funding or whatever. It'd be very hard to maintain a gallery space without someone behind it putting money to make it available. But the thing is as well, it's like that Arts Council funding doesn't just go towards us running the space. It goes towards being able to pay artists to do work, commission work, things like that. So yeah, but it's very much kind of like you need to
pay yourself before you
paying people for what they're doing. So if people are if you're asking someone to make some work to put in your exhibition, then you need to be able to pay them for their time. Or like if someone's shipping work to the gallery that they've already made, then you want to be able to reimburse them, for their shipping costs. You don't want them to have to be, I mean, but all these little things kind of add up.
Yeah, it must be nice to actually pay artists money, because a lot of places just pay artists in appreciation or validation by putting on an open call and then having it so that when you win, that is almost your payment.
Well, that's I mean we've had to do that for a couple of exhibitions where like the Summer Open.
It's a way to build up social
you put it out
interaction.
There. Yeah, well, yeah, it's because the Summer Open call that we had, we ended up with, I think it was like 46, 47 artists in there. But some of them were professionals, some of them were students, some of them were people who just did it as a hobby. and those people who do it as a kind of a hobby and stuff like that, they're not the sort of people who are going to be regularly kind of normally submitting work into galleries or having stuff in shows and stuff. So it's nice to be able to kind of, spread that about and give people opportunity to show their work next to other people who are well established, artists within whatever it is that they do, so.
Yeah, I guess open calls do work, especially for galleries when you can see the work coming in, and after a couple of submissions, you should be able to like pick which ones would go together instead of just working with a select group of artists on an exhibition. You can be able to pick and choose and sort of create one that has work that goes together.
Yeah, I mean the open, it's weird because when it comes to, I mean, we'll find this with every show that we do, but you kind of start off and a few pieces of work come in and you start thinking about like oh, that would go nice with that and this would go nice with this, and generally speaking, by the time you get towards the end, the show almost curates itself, because you can just look at this work and just go, well, that and that and that are going to look amazing together up on the wall, and that goes with that, and these colors link, this is the same sort of theme, and so it actually kind of ends up, a lot of the time the shows kind of end up creating.
Do you find it easier to curate with Bobby or than you would on yourself? Do you find it easier to curate with someone else?
I think so, yeah. It's nice because we're able to bounce ideas off one another, and also like bring different tastes to the table. And generally speaking, in nearly every show that we've had, I'd say 85% of the work is work that we've agreed that we both like. But the rest of the work will be a couple of pieces that Bobby likes, but I hate, and vice versa. Well, not hate. Hate's probably a strong. Hate might be a strong word, but like but then it allows us to kind of, it allows us to come up with an overall show that has a little bit of everything, and hopefully kind of appeals to as many people as possible. I think if it was, well, that's it. If it was just me curating the show on my own, like there would have been pieces that I know that we've shown that I would have either not shown, wouldn't have even offered them space, wouldn't have necessarily even found that artist, because like Bobby's found artists, I've found artists, and so the shows would have been completely different if I'd done them by myself. And there's pieces that that might be a piece that I look at on the picture and go, I think that would be great, and Bobby's like, oh, I don't like it, but when it comes in, you'd be like, oh, actually, I really like that, and oh, it really goes well with this, and and the same, for me. So it does kind of allow you to get an interesting mix of different things in there.
I must admit, I've been quite guilty of only attending your exhibitions on the opening night, but I imagine there's an awful lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and often throughout which would be deemed as conventional working hours. Do you find it possible to balance running a gallery with making art and finding a way to make an income at the same time?
Well, it works out nice for me because my main source of income is through being an artist. So when we have an exhibition on, I'm able to kind of use part of the space as a studio. And so even when I'm in there working, I can be working on pieces of art while I'm there. And then at the same time, we're only open 3 days a week. So the rest of the time, I can go into the space and just create artwork. And so if anything, having the space has actually kind of increased the amount of work that I'm able to do. But then there'll be certain times when, say, it's like installation week or whatever, when we've got lots of stuff happening, then obviously I don't have the time to do the work, but it kind of makes up for that when when the show's on. Well,
I'd say that organising an exhibition and curating one itself, it would be making work, but obviously it's a tougher debate, but that's my personal view on the subject.
Well, yeah, so I suppose as a curator it is, but I mean, you're talking You know, I mean, we might spend days, weeks, whatever, kind of talking and discussing what different pieces of artwork we're going to go in. But then the actual curation of the show really happens once all the work arrives, and generally, we're trying to get that done in like 3 or 4 days because you've kind of got a rough idea of where you think you might want to put stuff in that anyway, you know. So by that point, it kind of helps it helps kind of make it a bit easier to work out exactly what you want to where things are going to go, so you're not having to think about it when the stuff actually arrives.
I understand recently you sold some pieces for a big, nice, fat stack of cash. I would be very interested in hearing about how this came to be.
how I ended up selling my stuff for a big fat of cash. Yeah. Well, basically, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's one of those things where it's kind of lucky more than anything to start with. Well, not even right place. I mean, literally got an email off this guy who'd seen my work. And to be honest with you, I asked him afterwards, like, like when I first met up with him, I says, "Oh, where did you see my work? Was it my website, Instagram, Facebook?" He's like, "I can't remember." So he couldn't even remember where he'd seen it. But yeah, he sent us this email, and the email was literally just this one line, and it just went, "I would like to buy some of your work. Can I come to your studio?" And that was it. No further information or anything. Yeah, and I was just like, I sent him one back, and I was just like, yeah, that sounds great. Can I just ask, which piece is it in particular you're interested in or anything like that? And then the next email I got was basically, I work for this gallery in America. They've asked me to find some new artists to add to their kind of roster. Can I come and speak to you about it? So I invited him over. The wife kept on saying, "You're going to get stabbed." And I was like, yeah, she was like, "You're gonna get stabbed," and it sounds dodgy. And I was like, "I know it sounds dodgy," because I checked out the guy on Facebook, and the guy was like in his 70s, and I was like, "Well, he was in his 70s," and I was just like, it well, yeah, I was thinking I can have him, and if someone turns up who doesn't look like a 70-year-old man, I'm not going to let him in the studio, you know. But then he comes along, and we're chatting and stuff, and he's looking for all the work which I've got in my studio. And he's just and then he explains to us that he represents he basically he used to kind of go to auctions and buy artwork and sell artwork and stuff like that. And he had some work that this American gallery were interested in buying, and after they bought it off him, they then asked him if he'd be willing to kind of go and buy work on their behalf in auctions and stuff in the area that obviously they can't go to because they're in America. So he started doing that for them, and then I think it was a few months before he got in touch with me. They said to him, "Look, we don't want to be constantly buying art from artists who are dead, because artists who are dead can't make more work." Yeah, but they can't make more work though, more than anything. You know what I mean? So like if you buy 20 paintings by some guy and then you go to sell them and they sell really well, but that guy's dead, you can't get any more paintings, you know? So they were like, "Look, we're wanting to invest in living artists, we're wanting to kind of support artists and get them, kind of help get their name out there and stuff like that. Can you have a look and see if you can find anybody who you think might be of interest?" He'd sent them my work. They were interested, so he got in touch and came and had a look at it. And then and then he explained it all to us, and all the time I'm just waiting for the bit where it was just like, and it's going to cost you this much, or if you just send your work, if you send your work to America, and then in 3 or 4 months' time we'll send you a check, So I was just kind of waiting for that moment, but that moment never happened, and it was like, "We'll buy your work, and we'll buy it, and we'll pay for it to get shipped to America, and then when it gets to America, we'll sell it."
Where in America is it?
Yeah. What?
Where in America is it gone to?
The place itself, which is, well, they've kind of started a new separate kind of named area, which is just specifically for about 10 or 15 artists, and I'm one of them. It's called the Felix Gallery, and they're based out of Miami, but the company has got galleries and across America. They've also got their own TV channel, so they sell work via their own TV channel. They've got gallery spaces on cruises, and stuff like that. So once it goes to America, once it gets there, it then gets spread out across, these galleries and stuff all across America. So, I mean, I've had people getting in touch with us, like from all these different parts, going, "I've bought this, I've bought that," and the stuff's all over the place. And so they literally then bought every single thing that I had in my studio.
I do think it's much more ethical for galleries and companies to be buying artwork off living artists instead of dead people who can't, benefit from the income.
Well, it is, but like you say, I mean, their logic fits in. It's like I say, if you support a living artist and that artist starts doing well, then the work is worth more. They can make more work. It kind of works for everybody involved. And so ever since then, I'm basically contracted up with them to produce work every month, and then they buy it, it gets shipped over to America, and then I just start on some more. And at this precise moment in time,
How many pieces have you sent them?
What, in total since I started?
Yeah.
No idea, mate. We're talking hundreds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You must have sold them all.
Not everything's sold. Yeah, but I mean, like, not everything sells. So, like, because especially when I first started with them, it was kind of like I had all this different stuff, different styles, different kind of themes and media and stuff like that. So when I first, there was stuff that they bought within that first lot, and within the first like few lots really, which didn't sell, that didn't do well. People weren't interested in them as much as there were other pieces. So then they were able to kind of say to me, "Look, these paintings are doing really well. Could you do more stuff like this? Could you do some more stuff in this style?" And so by doing that, it meant that I was able to kind of, I've been able to kind of find certain pieces, certain kind of things that I do that kind of work well, sell well. And so it's kind of like, I just kind of go, right, I'll do them. And I know that they're going to want to buy them because I know that they know that they can sell them. But it's kind of but the work that they're interested in, the stuff which I do for them is it's all kind of urban graffiti, street art based, stencils, stuff like that.
Would you say that this is one of your favourite mediums to work in?
It is, but it's kind of like there's two sides to my work. So there's like my work had always been split between the kind of fine art, fine kind of modern contemporary kind of stuff, making sculptures, video, kind of abstract painting. But then I'd always had this kind of street art graffiti style alongside it,
Yeah, I do know. I remember the first time I was very impressed by some of your work is when I seen a photo of a pizza mural you did inside what I could only imagine is a pizza shop.
It was a pizza shop in Saltburn.
But you've always been involved in a lot of public murals and sort of graffiti styled work before, haven't you?
So yeah, and I graffitied Middlesbrough Football Club, the stadium. I've done various like shops.
The Zetland car park.
Yeah, Zetland car park. Yeah. So I'd kind of done various kind of street pieces and things like that. But I used to like do a lot of stuff on canvas and stuff as well, with the intention of being able to sell it. But then yeah. So it's kind of they're kind of interested in that side. So but obviously the more kind of fine art, contemporary, modern stuff that I do, that doesn't, a lot of the time, there's no way that could even pay the bills because it's like site-specific sculptures or something like that, which, no one's going to buy. You know what I mean? It's like, so by being able to split my work, it's like I'd spend half my time making the work for them, which I can then sell, and then with the money I get from that, it allows us to support my other practice and buy materials and equipment for that and put on shows and and do the other things, which I wouldn't be able to do one without the other, really. So it kind of works out very nicely.
Are you finding yourself more excited lately by the work you're making or by the exhibitions that you've been putting on, especially the opening nights and the buzz that can sometimes surround them?
There's definitely, I mean, it's definitely, there's like I say, the buzz is certainly kind of appealing. It's when people turn up and they enjoy the show and people are for having a good time and stuff like that. There's no, it does feel really good, and you kind of sit back and you look and you kind of go, yep, we've kind of, this has worked out really well. Yeah, but then at the same time, there's something nice about kind of finishing off a piece of art, and just being able to step back and look at it and go, yep, I'm happy with that. That's kind of good. Yep, that is good to go.
How are you finding getting funding now, Steve, with the whole lockdown and everything?
Well, we were actually, so Pineapple Black had put in a funding bid in January, back end of January, when our other funding had ended. And so we were actually going for more money, and so we were having to wait 12 weeks to find out if we were going to get the funding. We were 3 weeks away from finding out if we were going to get the funding when the Arts Council pulled the funding. And so...
Is that specific to lockdown?
Yeah, because of the lockdown, yeah. So because of the lockdown, rather than the Arts Council continuing doing the ones that they were going to do, they started up an emergency fund for artists and galleries and stuff to be able to apply to, but to be able to afford that, it meant that they couldn't afford to do the ones that had already been submitted. Plus, they knew, which, I mean, it's fair enough, half that stuff, well, not half, but like some of the stuff that we'd submitted into that proposal, we can't do now because of the lockdown. Because right now there should be an exhibition. We should be getting ready right now for an exhibition by students from Teesside University who were on the illustration and comic book and stuff, and they were going to be having an exhibition in the space to show off their end of year.
Is that a new course?
No, it's kind of like a mix of a couple of the courses. But you know how they have like the end of year show at the uni normally. Well, this was going to be at Pineapple Black instead, so that more members of the public could see it.
I think that's a great idea, because you wouldn't usually get a member of the public sort of walking through the heart of campus, so they wouldn't see that a show was on, and even if they did, they wouldn't usually go in because it seems more like a private event.
Yeah, I mean, yourself from the art shows, the art exhibitions when we had them at uni, it's like once you've had the opening night, that's pretty much it, really. Like the odd person might come in, but generally speaking, that person who comes in is probably a family member or something who's coming to look at someone in particular's work, aren't they?
Yeah, it's definitely better to have it in Pineapple Black. It's such a public space. Being in the Cleveland centre means that people, even when I've been at exhibitions, people just sort of straggled in who weren't planning to come to it that day.
Yeah, well, we're like the because especially because when we're first open, like on a night, the first like kind of hour or something, like people are still kind of like finishing the shopping up and stuff, and so you get people wandering in with like shopping bags and just having a little kind of like having a little, especially like if we've got a performance on it, like as a performance artist. And you've got the music blaring, and you've got some person kind of dancing about doing stuff, and then like everyone's just, as you walk past and look through the windows, it's just like, what on earth is going on in there, So people come in to have a look.
Is there any work that you're currently working on at the moment, Steve? I'd ask about upcoming shows, but maybe not in the current climate.
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, so we've applied for the emergency funding for Pineapple Black. To be able to provide more kind of online digital content. because at the moment it's very much always been kind of very physical, with the actual space. So hopefully, if we get some funding from the hardship fund, then we'll be able to keep Pineapple Black going digitally until we're able to reopen again physically.
How would that look?
So, well, we're talking about either looking at doing it like having a 3D version of the gallery space with some people that we know who have been working on developing a kind of their own online 3D gallery, and so we're going to look at kind of working with them to develop a version of Pineapple Black virtually that we can hold exhibitions in. Facebook,
cool.
Instagram, kind of, like just doing what we can to try and keep it going. We're going to try and do some like artist talks and things like that. And then like the funding that we're asking for will be going towards being able to pay the artists for doing these things. So then we'll be able to help other artists who are, currently also struggling with funding or whatever. So yeah, so that's what we've been working on and kind of coming up with that. So yeah, so it's different, but it's still kind of follows the same kind of ideas and principles of the other gallery. It's just it's just time to do it in a different sort of way, isn't it? So we'll see how that goes.
Have you pushed your shows back, or are you planning on completely rescheduling everything? Or are you just waiting to see?
Well, there's a couple of shows that just can't physically. There's no way that they're going to be able to take place now. I mean, for example, like that uni one, it's very much it needs to happen then. By the time we might reopen, those students are going to have been long gone, started jobs, whatever. They're not going to be.
Does that mean that the graduating students this year won't be receiving a final show?
Well, as far as because they can't, because
I've spoke to lecturers at Teesside Uni, and they're saying that most of the art subjects have to do their degree show in a non-traditional means, whether that be an online show or maybe a show collaborated at home or something. But it can't be.
Like people are
traditional
their work and stuff, aren't they?
Yeah.
So people are having to kind of do it, but from home. So they can't, we can't use the gallery. There was a piece of. There was an exhibition, there was a thing planned for the Middlesbrough Art Weekender, but the Middlesbrough Art Weekender has now been pulled because of the coronavirus.
Such a shame.
Because even though it's not until the end of September, a lot of the planning, a lot of the work and stuff goes in months before that, and they can't do that.
Well, it starts planning a year before, doesn't it, really?
Yeah. So there's certain things that would, they're kind of very much dependent on the time, and that time's no longer going to be available. But then also we've got other shows that were planned in already for later on in the year, so we can't, move.
Can't tell them to wait, yeah.
We can't really move other shows around because we've got people working towards shows which were planned for, October, November time. And at the same time, we still don't, at this precise moment in time, we don't know exactly when we're going to be able to reopen, do we? So it's hard to kind of judge at the moment as to exactly what we can do and when. But we're just trying to. We've got what we've got lined up, and hopefully as soon as this kind of we're able to continue with it, we'll hopefully be able to just kind of crack on with what we'd originally planned. But we'll just have to wait and see, really, because it's affecting everything, artists making work and all sorts. So, but yeah, we haven't given up yet.
Right, I think we're going to wrap it up there, Steve, mate. It's been absolutely amazing having you on the show. You've been the best guest we've ever had.
I'm not the first guest you've had. Yeah. I'll take that compliment with a pinch of salt.
It's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No worries.
And thank you all at home for listening. That's the end of this second episode of the Artist Podcast.